Good morning, everyone. It's Saturday, which means it's time for yet another Salty Saturday morning. I'm your belabored producer, Matthew Kadish, and with me, as always, is our fantastic panel of nerds, starting with Matt Vader74. How you doing, buddy?
Good, man. I'm good. Ready to go. Saturday morning, Star Trek, Star Wars. Woo! Can't wait. I'm full of energy, apparently.
Full of energy, just waking up, all that good stuff. So, guys, this is awkward, but I've got some type of window that's open that's like repeating the stream. So I'm getting like a double thing. Vader, can you take over the introductions?
Oh my God. Well, hi, everybody. I'm Matt Vader, and this is the Salty Saturday morning live stream. And sitting over here next to me is I can't do this as good as he can. I'm just going to say, hey, it's Brian, one half of the Popcast. How you doing, buddy?
What's up, brother? How you doing?
I'm good. Are you going to be all like gay today and be our shield of queerness?
You're not good at the introductions, I can tell. No, sorry. Yeah, I'm the non-binary Latinx rep here. So yeah, I'm the salty shield for Saturday mornings.
All right, I fixed the issue.
All right, good. Welcome back. Our shield of queerness.
Shield of queerness. Our non-binary queer Latinx representative from the podcast. But returning once more triumphantly to the show, we haven't had them on in a while, but we're really glad they're back, are the two co-hosts of the Perfect Turd podcast, the internet's #1 bad movie podcast. You guys love bad movies and talking about bad movies. Be sure to check out their YouTube channel. Joe from the Perfect Turd podcast. Welcome, sir.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. And I heard about your guys' new studio. Congratulations on that going on.
Thank you very much. And of course, last but not least, Lamar from the Perfect Turd podcast. How you doing, buddy?
Doing very well. Thank you for having us. Yeah, congratulations on the new studio. Yes.
Thank you. Now, you guys have been working really hard on your podcast. Why don't you tell us a little bit about what you've been doing lately?
Well,
get away, Joe, because you
doing a lot of
I'll
just call them interesting movies, and got a lot of interviews coming up, and we interviewed martial arts legend Cynthia Rothrock this year to kick off the year. So a lot of cool stuff going on over there. B movies, though, yeah.
That's very cool. Like you guys are doing a lot of interviews with B movie celebrities. You're like the Popcast of the bad movie realm over there.
Yeah, we got a list of people where we're just like, it's only a matter of time. Come to us, basically. Yeah.
Very, very good. All right. I want to shout out everyone who came to join us in chat this morning. We got Danny's mom, Penny. Good to see you. Chris Dennison, Anthony Mark, as always. Good to see you, Anthony. Goran Faith or Falth. Goran Felth. He's got some umlauts in his name, so I don't know how to pronounce it. The Astro Nerd Boy. Good to see you, sir. We also got the Orlando Dragon, Mr. Farnsworth, Robert Daniels, Joker's voice, hashtag keep talking. Good to see you, Joker. And I'm sure more people will be coming in as we get going. But before we dive into the show, we got two things that we need to talk about. Okay, I guess we're doing super chats now. Okay.
I thought that was what you was one of those two things.
The Joker voice for $10. Who stuck an episode of Andor in Mandalorian? Where did a squadron of TIE interceptors come from? How did Lieutenant Biscuits survive? So many questions. Hashtag keep talking. Matt, let's call that up when we actually get to the Mando discussion so we can address these things. But real quick, want to give a shout out to some of our top donators. So last week we had Bob Dorsey come in and knock Scotty Dub off of his top super chat perch. Bob Dorsey dropped a $115 super chat last week, which was absolutely insane. So Scotty Dub and the Astro Nerd Boy, who's in the chat, they're both members of the $100 Club. Really appreciate their support. They have each donated $100 in one super chat. So if you guys want to have your name up there in the $100 Club, you know what to do. We also have Joker Voice and Fluffy Panda, who are some of our most consistent donators. We really appreciate their support. Joker, I believe, is also a moderator in the chat. Is that right, Vader?
Yeah, I think he has a wrench.
Okay. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you. I was being tired. And then, of course, we have our top super thanks donator, Backyard TARDIS. He goes through our older videos and leaves us super thanks, which are basically super chats that you can leave in the comments of videos. So if you guys want to get a name up there as well, we do have a second top super chat donator spot available if you want to do that. And of course, our top contributor, the guy who has donated the most money and given the most support and most love to the show, is, of course, Scotty Dub. We really appreciate his support over there. But in addition to that, we also have a sponsor for today's show. Now, I don't know if you guys from the Perfect Turd podcast are aware of Extra Wallets. But if you have a George Costanza wallet, which is one that's this big and it makes you like lean like this when you sit down.
Just show him your wallet. Just show him your wallet.
Well, I don't have my wallet easily available here because I'm trying to sit upright. But we basically okay, so let me showcase Brian's thing here. So Brian has his Extra wallet right there. And Extra wallets are really cool. They've got a slim design. They are half the size of a traditional wallet. They hold 12 cards along with some cash, and they're made from Italian leather, carbon fiber, and space grade aluminum. So they are super, super fancy. They've got RFID blockers built into the wallet. So like if you from hackers, people try and steal your information, your credit cards, all that stuff. And it's also got a tracking card for lost or stolen wallets. So if you're someone like Brian who loses his wallet constantly
all the time
and needs to low jack it, they have a tracking card that allows you to find it no matter where you put it. And it's a really great wallet. We've actually got some coming our way for the Salty Nerds. So like we can show them off on stream and stuff like that. But if you want to get one of these amazing wallets, just go to shop.exter.com/thepopcast and type in the promo code ThePopcast with a V, not just Popcast, it's The Popcast. You'll get $25 off your first order. So you can get these wallets super affordable and they are really, really good. Otherwise, we would not be hacking them. Or I should say, hawking them or selling them, whatever terminology you want to use. So we really appreciate the support from Extra Wallet, showing love for the Salty Nerd and the Popcast. So if you guys want to support the show and you want to get great wallet in return, just head on over to that link, which will also be in the description after the show is over, and use the Popcast for 25% off. All right, guys, enough selling. Let's get to the fun stuff of the day. So we're going to start off by talking about Picard Season 3, Episode 5, entitled Imposters, I believe. Is that right, Brian?
Yes.
What?
Yeah.
All right.
We're all here. We're here today for sure.
Yeah.
We're here.
Everyone's awake and ready to talk about
here. We're ready to party.
Right.
Absolutely zero technical issues and all that good stuff.
Everything is working fantastically.
Yes. All right. So guys, we're midway through the third and final season of Star Trek Picard.
Yeah.
And a lot of people were saying like, oh, the next episode 5, it's so good. I couldn't believe it. I was a little disappointed. I'm not going to lie. I was a little underwhelmed by this mid-season episode. I know it's a setup episode. It's setting up the next act of the season. But I had one kind of like big issue with this episode, which was that when Ensign Ro reappeared, I was like, oh, is that Ensign Ro? And I had totally forgotten about all the drama between like her and Picard. And so like a lot of the emotional stuff in this episode that hardcore Trekkies were probably like, just bawling their eyes out over. Like I was just kind of like, okay, I don't care. Because, Ensign Ro, she came on as a replacement for Wesley. And we all know basically like how we feel about Wesley Crusher, don't we?
Yeah. Ensign Ro was much better than Wesley.
Yeah. Oh, 100% better.
Yeah. She was also much more attractive than Wesley.
Oh, yes.
But it had been so long since I'd seen like, the later seasons of Star Trek: The Next Generation that like I had totally forgotten all about like her going off with the Maquis and like all this other stuff. So when she appeared, I was like, oh, is that Ensign Ro? And when they started filling in like all the background, I was just like, oh, I don't remember that at all. So a lot of the emotional stuff kind of fell flat for me. Also the stuff with Jack Crusher, where like, all of a sudden like that switch gets flipped and he becomes like Mr. Badass and stuff like that. I was like, oh man, like I'm not sure I like where that's going. I felt like I wanted to see more Shaw in this episode because Shaw had some great moments as usual. He consistently steals the show. Overall, it was not a bad episode. It just, after the high of the last episode 4, where like, you know, you had like that great climax and you had some great TNG moments and the crew came together and you just had all these feel good moments. It felt like a step backwards. And plus, the biggest drawback in this episode, too much Raffi. Like, Raffi came back into the storyline after not being anywhere in last episode, and every time she's on screen, she just derails it. Now it was cool to see, you know, the 12 Monkeys cameo with the Vulcan crime lord and stuff like that. But still,
that guy was cool.
Yeah. Just what's his name, Kirk Acevedo, I believe. So it was cool to see him, but like, man, every time Raffi's on screen, I just want to fast forward. I just want to get back to like the main story. So, and it felt like Worf was just channeling Galaxy Quest, you know, like those aliens that do like the Mokhtar, like whatever, where it slows your heart rate and stuff like that. I was like, is this like, is Star Trek becoming Galaxy Quest at this point? It wasn't as good of an episode for me. Now,
bro. That's a Kalis technique from like,
I know,
TOS, man.
Matt Vader 74. What did you think of episode 5, Imposters?
So, I too feel almost all the things that you felt. I feel the exact same way. The building up to episode 5, and especially the couple days before it, man, everybody was all like, including Brian over here, he was like, man, episode 5, it's gonna be the greatest thing in the world. You gotta stay up till midnight, you gotta watch it. It's gonna blow you away. It's the best piece of Star Trek ever made.
You know, learn, bro. I don't know how you guys don't like that episode.
And weird. No, but I didn't like it, but I watched it and I think I was just kind of let down a little bit because we're still on the ship. Which is fine. Don't get me wrong. I like being on the ship. Okay. We still haven't seen Geordi. Deanna is still not in this show. We're halfway through, and Geordi LaForge isn't in this show. We still haven't seen whatever Brent Spiner's doing with lore or data version 7.2 or whatever's coming along. We're halfway through. We've only gotten half of our cast back still. And it's kind of starting to piss me off a little bit. And, you know, Shaw is smart ass captain. We're gonna insert him in there, and he's gonna have some smart ass lines, and he's gonna throw a couple swears out there, and we're gonna move on from Shaw. You know, it's like I don't know how I'm supposed to feel about this character yet. In my mind, in my theory crafting, he's a changeling. He's a sleeper agent, and I don't know. He's probably not, but he could be. You know, it's weird to me. I don't know. The Ro stuff I liked. I did like bringing Ro back. I thought it was a little contrived. I thought it was a little gimmicky. Don't get me wrong. But it was the how do I word this? It was the conclusion to a storyline in the old Next Generation that I thought was over and that I didn't need, but now I'm happy that I got it. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Didn't know you wanted it, but
yeah, kind of, sort of that kind of thing. Again, yeah, Raffi. I don't care about Raffi. I'm starting to get a little bit insulted with her writing. You know, and I'm not trying to like dog on the writers of this show, but all she does is just spout out exposition. It's like the Daystrom Institute denied our request. Well, no shit. It's what it says on the screen right in front of you. You know, request denied. You know, she just repeats stuff that we already know as part of her dialogue, and I just I don't like it. It's silly to me. I need this story to move on. I want the crew together. I want them all in the ready room solving the mystery. I want Worf together with Riker so they can like play off of each other. You know, I've had enough of Worf and Raffi and their little crime lord hijinks down in the middle of Crime Town. I'm done with that stuff. You know what I mean? You know their little conversation. We're the alphas now in this crime planet. It's like, yeah, dude, you killed one guy. You killed one little dude. Do they run the entire?
Yeah, that guy ran the entire
city?
thing, bro. He was the crime lord.
It's just silly. We're the alphas. I'm gonna sit down on my knees and meditate while the rest of the crime planet plans the thing around me. It just didn't work for me. But yeah, it's still cool. Don't get me wrong. I'm enjoying this show. This is probably, to me though, the weakest episode that they've had come out so far, with the exception of the big reveal and the closure we all got with Ro and Picard. So I'm looking forward to where they go, but they need to start bringing the crew together. Otherwise, they're going to start losing me really quick.
Well,
and as far as
Matt said it when he was talking about it, this is the setup episode for episode 6.
But we're halfway through the show, Brian. And
right, but there's 3 acts to a story, bro.
We needed to get the crew together like episode 3.
No, come on.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Get out of here, bro. Sure. You would have said it was rushed then.
No, before we get to Brian's defense of this episode, I want to go to Lamar and Joe, because Lamar, you're coming at this from a very different place than most people. So, like, you never watched The Next Generation.
Yeah.
Right. You didn't watch the first 2 seasons of Picard, but you have just jumped into this season. So what's your take on it so far? Just the first 5 episodes.
I will say that it is interesting. And we talked about it before. I did like just a short recap video of like the first 2 seasons. I feel like this is easier to follow for somebody that doesn't, like the story is easier to follow for somebody just coming into it. But yeah, I'm probably going to say names wrong, so nobody, digitally smack me or anything like that. But it is interesting, like on the ship, the dynamics of things, because I feel like Picard is kind of like the old Ward. He kind of does things like the old school way and comes in. Also with Riker. So that dynamic is cool. And then, of course, you have the wise ass of Shaw. So, that was cool. With the whole Worf and I want to say Rafi thing, the problem is like, okay, that could be like a cool like buddy cop thing, but it's like to the point where they're so far apart, like it's like annoying. Like she's always mad and angry, and it's just like he's
like the wise monk.
And you could do that, but it's like exaggerated to the point where you're just like, wow, like
that's true.
Is this like Lethal Weapon like 6 or something like that?
It's Rush Hour 5.
Yeah, it's something like that. It's just like it's too much. Like you could have that, like even like maybe if she was like a younger character and then Worf came in and he was like not so like stereotypical, the wise old person, that would be better for me. But yeah, it's getting to the point where I'm like, okay, are they gonna like, I don't know, like do like in Rush Hour where they have a handshake or something? It's like, that part of it where like, yeah, get everybody together. That's what I want to see, that part. But on the ship, that's the cool dynamics that I like. So yeah.
All right. Now, Joe, you are familiar with The Next Generation, but you also did not bother to watch the first 2 seasons of Picard.
I tried, and then I gave up.
Yeah.
But
now, in fact, I think you and Lamar were talking about how convoluted and confusing it seemed before you got into season 3.
When I was started watching, I was like, well, what the hell is this? Like, I think the whole purpose of making a Picard show is like what everyone's talking about, getting the old gang back together for one last adventure, which is what they're doing with this. With the Worf thing, I do agree. It's getting a little long-winded, but my hope is that one episode he's gonna explode. He's gonna be old War. He's just gonna explode. So I'm holding out for that because the Ro Laren stuff was great, but I was wondering because I know they explained it, but like, how in the hell should she be allowed back in Starfleet after what she did? So
well, Starfleet intelligence kind of plays fast and loose with morals.
Yeah, they've always done that.
Yeah.
I didn't have any problem buying into her story about how she got back. I did. In fact, I quite liked most of the Rose stuff. It just seemed a little out of left field. But that's also part of why I think this show is popular, because they do touch on a lot of fan service and member berries for this thing. And after the first 2 seasons, I know for me personally, that's all I want. That's what I wanted. I needed it. I needed something to bring us back, because all of Kurtzman Trek has just been, with the exception of 2/3 of Strange New Worlds, it's been trash. It's been awful. So I need this show to keep me sane and to let me think that there can still be good Star Trek made out there. But like I said, I want the crew together. That's what I want. I want the crew back together in the same room, not the A story, the B story. I want the crew in the same room. So anyway.
Yeah, real quick before we get to Brian and his take on this stuff, I just want to remind everyone that if you guys do send us super chats, we will stop the show to address them, make sure that your questions get answered, and we'll also put you on the ticker down below just to keep track of everyone who's supporting the live stream today. So we really appreciate the support. Brian, now it's kind of an interesting thing that they were able to keep Ro Laren's appearance secret for as long as they did. Right. I know talking to Shane, he talked about how he actually got choked up while watching this episode for the first time. So why don't you give us the breakdown of what you thought about imposters?
Yeah, I was never a fan of the Ro Laren character in TNG. Better than Wesley, for sure. But I didn't really care for her. I same with Kara from DS9. I just didn't like that character. Kira, whatever her name is, I don't care.
You guys all butchered names today.
I mean, she's just the worst. After Wesley,
Ro was originally supposed to be Kira,
right? Which I would argue might have made the character better, because I think that Ro Laren, I think the actress was just a better actress than Kira. Kira never sold me on being the strong. She just seemed whiny the entire time. At the very least, Ro Laren didn't seem whiny, but she also seemed like she was just always angry. It was like she was like Rafi. Ro Laren in TNG was like Rafi now, right?
No.
Yeah, disagree. She was super whiny, bro, the entire time. Angry and whiny.
Michelle Forbes could actually act and deliver her lines.
I'm sure, but the character is angry and whiny, right? So I didn't really, when I saw it happening, when I first saw this months ago, I was like, oh, that's the cameo that Terry was teasing. Terry was like, don't worry, there's a cameo coming up you guys are gonna love.
Yeah.
And when Rose showed up, I'm like, initially I was disappointed. I was like, oh, that's the cameo out of all the people. At least it's not Tasha Yar, because that's the worst. At least it's not Wesley, but Ro Laren is third on my list. For me, it's I don't want Wesley, Tasha Yar, and then Ro Laren. So when I saw Ro Laren initially, I was a little disappointed. But then I like you said, I didn't realize that I actually wanted the story, because it really did. It retroactively made that character better.
Mm-hmm.
Her interaction with Picard, two people that are very, very good actors that really finished that story. It was beautiful, and the way she sacrificed herself was just awesome. Really cool stuff. I really liked it. So I ended up being I guess I'm a Ro Laren fan now. I guess that's what it takes. It takes 28 years later for her character to be actually rounded out correctly. Because and I love TNG, but there are plenty of characters and story points in TNG that are just not good. That's all TV is like that. So you know what? Terry fixed a character that was always a sticking point for me, which is awesome. Additionally, I gotta tell you, Matt, I can't spoil anything, but like Matt said, this is a setup for the next act. And
yep.
So there's a reason why other YouTubers got 6 episodes and not 5. Okay.
All right.
They would have been disappointed at 5. It's very important that they got this first 6. So next episode will probably make this episode better, if that makes any sense to you.
Well, we do know that at the end of this episode, Picard, Riker, and Worf realize that they're all kind of involved in the same thing. We got that final connection between the three of them, which basically sets the stage for Riker and Raffi to come and join the crew of the Titan, I guess. Yay. But I do like that slowly but surely, like, these storylines are starting to converge. So in this episode really focused a lot on the conspiracy with like the changelings, and kind of set the stage for like the big terrorist attack is going to be at like Fleet Week, or like whatever they call it,
Frontier Day.
Frontier Day. And like the entire Federation fleet's kind of like at stake, which I thought was very good setup, leading up to, what eventually is going to be like the big MacGuffin for this thing. But we learned a few things about the changelings this episode, which I thought were kind of interesting. So first of all, they're an evolution, right? Like, they're different from the changelings of the past. The typical blood test isn't going to work on these changelings because they actually are able to replicate blood and organs and things of that nature.
They're super changelings. Yeah,
pass all the scans. But one of the things I thought was interesting, Brian, maybe you can help shed some light on this, is that when Beverly's doing the autopsy on the Titan's changeling, she's got like her little scanner thing, and she's like, "Oh, interesting. There's no DNA, but there's plasma and blah blah blah." And I'm like, "Well, couldn't they just scan everyone, and whoever doesn't come up with any DNA is like a changeling?" Like, isn't that like an easy detection mechanism?
Yeah. I can't answer that without spoiling. Sorry.
Oh, without spoiling something. Okay.
Yeah.
So they do address this?
Yeah. So, remember in episode 1, you were nitpicking about them checking Jack's DNA in the transporter. Remember that?
Yeah.
Like, there's a reason why that doesn't happen. And I gotta stop talking, bro. I'm gonna fuck something up.
All right. Well, we don't want you to spoil anything, but
don't mess anything up.
But Vader, that was a big thing when I was watching this, where I was like, "Well, couldn't they just make sure that do like a quick DNA scan with one of those handheld things and be like, oh, you don't have
correct.
DNA?"
You are very correct, and you're also the world's nittiest nitpicker, and it drives me crazy. But yeah, no, you're right. My only question is, with all these changelings flying around everywhere, I just want to know if they all have matching pots. They all have the same pot.
No, it's funny. Terry answered that, actually. Terry answered that question. He's like the way I saw it was, these guys come aboard, like they're not bringing their pot. They're printing out whatever pot is available to them when they get to the ship.
Oh, okay, that's interesting.
And so think about this: what pot is on record? The pot of the only changeling that was in Starfleet.
That's a smart answer. That's a very smart answer.
I had the same question.
Okay,
of course, this guy's going to give me an answer that plays.
Yeah, it would have been nice if they had actually said that in the show.
I mean, that is like, imagine that detail. Like, that's too detailed. That's too much detail to share.
I disagree. But Lamar and Joe, so like there's a scene in here where basically the Intrepid, which is another Federation ship, comes in because Shaw basically called in Starfleet to rat out what Picard and Riker just put them through. And so like they're showing up to basically like apprehend these guys, and this is the ship that Rolaren shows up on. And it turns out that the Intrepid has been compromised along with Starfleet up to the very highest levels. And she's kind of rose there sussing out whether or not Picard and Riker have been compromised as well. And once she realizes that Picard, the same old synthetic version of like the captain that she once knew, she's like, okay, well, I think I'm going to trust you. And but she's betrayed by her security team, who are changelings. And basically they plant a bomb on her shuttle. And in order to give the Titan a chance to get away from the changelings, she flies her shuttle into one of its warp nacelles, blows up, damages the Intrepid. And there's this shot, it's right from a horror movie, right? Where like the Intrepid's like slowly coming up, and it's like powering up its weapons and things of that nature.
That's what an angry ship looks like.
Yeah, I know that Terry Metalis on Twitter, like he kind of highlighted this shot and talked about how he wanted it to look like a monster rising out of like the ocean to like, face down like
it worked.
The Titan. But I'm like, just the basic design of Federation ships, they're not scary. They're not intimidating at all. So I felt like that moment felt kind of flat to me, because it's supposed to be like this big, scary, intimidating moment. And if it had been like a Romulan warbird or like a Klingon bird of prey or something like that, it would have felt more intimidating than seeing like the very kind of like aesthetically pleasing Federation ship.
Oh,
like
I don't know.
it.
I felt the way they did the lighting. Even when the Intrepid first warps in, and they had that shot of the Titan over here, and the Intrepid comes in. Even it's the Intrepid's all lit up.
It looks
like it's the good guy. Yeah. You're right, and the Intrepid is basically dark with just the lighting coming around the saucer section and stuff, and it looks like, oh, these are the bad guys. That you definitely get that feeling that the Intrepid is not good. They're it's definitely a more intimidating ship just with the way that they lit it. And
classic spaghetti western,
I wanted to get the opinions of the two horror masters of the panel here, Lamar and Joe. You guys watch a lot of bad horror movies. So how did this compare to some of the stuff you guys normally review?
Oh Lord.
Man, oh man.
Well, the one thing about for me I get what you're saying, because the Federation ships aren't as intimidating as like the enemy warbirds, but psychology wise, its capability. So that's like the big issue when it's coming up and you're like, what it can do. So I thought it was pretty cool. Now to compare it to stuff that we watch, how would they do that in a B movie, Lamar? I don't know.
Let's go back to a movie that we just recently watched, Don't F in the Woods. And we had this topic about there was this big scary creature that you could tell looked crappy. Like, if you watch a lot of movies, you're like, it's not the best design. So what do? You put it in the shadows. Yeah. You put a lot of light, like,
Stranger Things that you got to hide it.
You got to hide it. And so that kind of thing. Now, with other movies that we have watched, they just show everything. And you're like, oh, this is a comedy because it's like lit up and all that stuff. But I think for this
Troll 27.
Oh God.
Leprechaun in the hood, right? Yeah.
We saw that, and it's just like, ugh. But I think they did the best that they could do. It's like, it's another Federation ship, so it's like, unless they do the thing. What was it from Star Trek? The one movie, the second one with the Khan, where it's like a big black. The new one, it was like a big black ship, and they're a Federation ship, and you're like,
you're talking about into darkness. That was actually
and I'm like, oh. I wonder if they're bad guys.
So many fans complained about that, though. I don't think they're gonna do that again.
Yeah. So.
I wonder if Picard. I wonder if Picard and Riker are gonna do this thing where they like jump from ship to ship and play a video game where they go between debris and asteroids.
No, they're not. They're not
gonna. And they go in a little tiny like pole.
Sorry, spoiler alert, guys. They're not gonna do that.
They're not gonna do that.
That's not gonna happen.
Are they going to keep going back to like their old episodes, like to solve stuff, like how they went into the nebula, which was kind of a throwback and everything?
Kind of a throwback to Wrath of Khan, right?
One of the great
technically Wrath of Khan was kind of a throwback to the TOS era, and that original episode where it was almost like a submarine kind of Crimson Tide style play out.
What though? Like one of the best scenes in this episode was when Shaw, Picard, and Riker are in the turbo lift, and Shaw and Picard and Riker are talking about all the times they saved the galaxy, and Shaw's just like, well, here are all the times where you like basically put the galaxy in jeopardy. He's like, you guys with saving the universe, it's kind of a chicken and egg scenario, isn't it?
Well, wait, you did drop the Enterprise D saucer section right on a planet.
Hot drop.
And you violated the prime directive just to get laid.
Knocked some chick on Baku. Almost ended the human race because of a time paradox.
And they probably like, in their minds like, kids nowadays, prime directive back in my day broke that all the time.
It's so funny because like all of his criticisms are, as a fan of Star Trek, are my criticisms. I'm always like, sometimes Star Trek episodes, like the problem they're solving, they caused it. You know, like they caused it. Like they went to Baku, like they caused it. Like the paradox, the temporal paradox was the biggest one. That was literally 100% their fault. Like.
They had a bunch of those.
I'm gonna bust open.
Real quick before we move on. So I've got some bad news for Bob Dorsey. We have a new top super chat champion,
God.
the Astro Nerd Boy, our original top super chatter, $150. I really love this episode. Rafi is the weakest part for sure, but at least she lost to Worf. I didn't know I wanted a Ro episode until she showed up. It was emotional at her death. Shaw is great as usual. I loved his chipper nature in the turbo lift. Yeah, when he's humming that tune, and Picard's like, "Do you mind?"
Yeah.
Brian, do we know what tune that was he was humming?
I tried to find it, bro. I was gonna put it in my Easter egg video. I couldn't find it.
Was it the 12 Monkeys theme?
I don't think so, because I looked that up too. I actually messaged Todd about that, and he hasn't answered me, because I'm pretty sure he just that wasn't part of the script. I think he just whistled.
Well, guys, we have a new top super chat champion, Mr. Astro Nerd Boy, which means I'm going to have to redo this graphic yet again for next week. Astro Nerd Boy, thank you so much for the support. You're incredibly generous with both your time and your money. Thank you so much. And we will be giving you that top spot next week. So thank you.
Go ahead.
No, finish your thought.
I want to talk real quick because you glossed over Jack's
that's
blackout
what
moment.
That's what we were going to talk about next. Okay. Is what the hell's going on with Jack here? Because he went from just being kind of like a normal Han Solo, kind of roguish dude with like a few visions, and now he's just being like, he's going full 12 Monkeys, bad time stuff visions.
12 Monkeys, right? That's a great reference.
Well, I mean, if you've watched the 12 Monkeys TV show, which was also by Terry Metalis, a lot of what Jack is seeing with like the vines and the red and all this stuff, it's right out of that show.
Yeah.
And we keep hearing Beverly Crusher's voice whispering to him like, "Find me," and like all this other stuff.
That's Beverly Crusher's voice?
It's not. No, it's her voice. What am I saying? No, I'm done. Stop.
All right. Well, in the subtitles of the episode, it says Beverly's voice when you hear those whispers. Oh. So I want to get some theories about what's going on here. Vader, let's start with you. What do you think's going on with Jack?
I have no theories. I don't have a theory. It's very strange to me that I don't have a theory, but I don't. I'm just kind of enjoying this one as it goes. I'm trying to like think back if we've ever seen the veiny red spiderweb looking things or what, but I'm just not coming up with anything. So I don't know. Maybe he's some kind of weird hybrid or something. Maybe when they did the dirty back in the day, Picard, has some
Borg
some Borg nanites mixed in with the boys.
With the Baku, it's the Baku.
Yeah,
I mean, think about it, dude. So Picard has been through a lot of stuff. His body was duplicated. Baku. Mm-hmm. He reverted his age. I mean, dude, the guy's DNA is probably messed up.
Maybe Jack's like hearing the Borg Queen, "Come join us," because he's like part Borg from Locutus. Yeah, it's I'm gonna go with that. He's part Borg. He needs to go join the collective. So yeah, that's where I'm going. That's what I'm gonna say.
All right, Lamar, Joe, do you guys have any theories on what's going on with Jack?
Man, I have no theories on that one, honestly. Like, I actually don't like that character. Like, I feel like that's the character that's kind of forced in. Like, you don't really need him, honestly. So I can't think of what it could be other than what you said. Like, he's some kind of hybrid. They kind of, sort of, maybe could be a changeling of some kind. I really don't know. What do you think?
I don't hate the character, Joe. Jeez. But it does have that little hint of, oh, you have a son and you didn't know about it until now. That kind of thing. But the whole red vines, I don't have enough of the Star Trek lore to know if that is something, but I don't like that part because I like more of the conspiracy with Starfleet. I like that being the driving force of things. So when I see the red vines, and then of course when he blacks out and turns into John Wick, I'm just like, okay, well, we'll see what happens. But I like the Starfleet being like compromised and stuff like that. So,
yeah, he does have that Jack Wick moment. Brian, do you care to explain what's going on?
Yeah, I can tell you this. Terry Metalis is a really good writer. And I've said it before, and I'm being really careful right now. I almost totally effed up earlier. I've said it before, though. Everything has a purpose in Terry's shows. Like in 12 Monkeys and in this, like everything has a purpose. Jack isn't just a fun distraction. Like there's a purpose. Everything is hyperlinked, right? He takes stuff that you didn't even know was important and almost background, and then makes it an important part of the show 2 episodes later, or some kind of reference or something. Everything there is no fluff here. Like what was the term? Roddenberries, right? So there's Roddenberries and memberberries. A Roddenberry is a memberberry that has a purpose. It's good. And a memberberry is something that's just sort of like it's just fluff. There's a lot less memberberries than you think there are. There's a lot more important Roddenberries that are connected and hyperlinked to other episodes, either that's happened or happening currently. And the crazy thing is, if you're really paying attention, like Terry lays the entire season out by like the 3rd episode, but you have to really pay attention. And I'm not saying that he said that. So everything has a purpose. Even Rafi and Worf has a purpose. He wanted to. No, I'm not gonna say he. They wanted to make Rafi's character better. They liked Michelle Hurd. She's a good actress outside of Star Trek. You know, I think that she was given bad material in the first couple of seasons. And they thought, what's the best way to fix this character with Worf? Let's have Worf come in and teach her how to be the Worf character. Because originally in season 1, they were like, well, she's going to come in and she's going to be like this badass, sort of like almost like a Worf character. She's going to have some baggage. She's going to be angry. But it didn't work out. It just seems sort of whiny. So let's bring the real thing in and we'll just fix that. So that's about her. That's what her story is. When it comes to Jack and other things, everything is hyperlinked. Everything is connected. Like literally everything is connected. And it's and by the end of this thing, you'll know what I'm talking about. And I think you're gonna really enjoy the clever writing. And like you said, you saw 12 Monkeys. That show is a masterpiece. And I don't know if I would have liked 12 Monkeys as much as I do had I stopped at like episode 6. You know, like you got to get through the story because there's stuff in season 2 that pays off stuff from episode 3 of season 1. So, and like Terry writes everything as a whole. Like there's a beginning and an end, and it's a giant story with acts. And I think that as we go, you guys are going to see that things work out very good. I'm sorry, I'm being really careful because I don't want to screw up.
Yes. I realize that, you know, out of everyone on the panel, you've seen the entire season of Picard. So I wanted to ask you, is there anything you can tell us about the next episode? Because they don't release the trailers after these episodes are over. So what can we look forward to in episode 6?
Yeah, everything you guys were talking about at the top of the show about wanting to see that because it's getting, you know, we're on the 5th episode. What's going on? Why are we? Well, all that gets like we're in the meat of the season now. Like next episode is the meat of the season. We got through Act 1. The setup is done. This episode was setting up Act 2, and now you're going to be in the prime of Act 2 next season. You're going to everything you asked for at the top of the show here, the top of the stream, is going to be paid off next episode.
I will say that as critical as I am of this episode 5, it's far and above way better than anything Kurtzman era Trek has given us, you know, up to this point.
Yeah, sure.
You know, anything on Discovery, anything in the first 2 seasons of Picard, like it was all just so bad that even like a mediocre episode of season 3 of Picard is like more enjoyable than any of that stuff. Lamar, Joe, I don't think you guys know how lucky you are to have skipped all that stuff. Like you probably don't even know about Star Trek Discovery.
Oh God, yeah.
I've heard people complain about
you lucky bastard.
live in that bliss, my friend.
Here, let me just give you guys a little tip, okay? Imagine if the ship you were in also had a gender issue.
But this is Star Trek. I thought they kind of fixed that.
Yeah,
like
that's Trek. The ship Discovery.
Oh, the actual ship.
Decided that she has it has pronouns. That is how crazy bad this show has gotten. The ship is figuring out what its pronouns are in a Star Trek show. It's almost a parody of itself. It's so bad.
Was that after or before
the engines aren't connected to the ship? They're floating by the ship. No, it doesn't make any sense. No one has any idea how it even propels through space. The engines are just floating like magnetically next to the ship. It's the weirdest nonsense. I'm not kidding. The ship has pronouns, dude.
Well, I'm glad I skipped it. Now, since you've seen all the episodes of Picard, would you say that as a whole, like this would have made a better movie than any of the other TNG movies? Because the other TNG movies aren't that great. Honestly.
Oh, dude, Insurrection is
Would you say as a whole, like this story is like this should have been like the TNG
that's funny
movie?
We were actually talking about that, and like this would be such an epic like 3-part movie. Like if they cut it into like 3, 2.5 hour movies or whatever, like it would totally work because there is 3 acts. Like this season has 3 acts. You could have had this could have been a TNG final trilogy event, 100%. And it's crazy they did it with this is what's nuts, the lowest budget so far out of any Star Trek ever. And they're accomplishing what they're accomplishing. They have had the lowest budget out of any modern day Trek. So from Discovery to now, they have had the least amount of money to play with. It's like their budget's actually absurd. But I guess that's what I guess Terry got to do whatever he wanted. So
I wonder what's going to happen when this is all over and Kurtzman and those guys look and they see the fan reactions to all their stuff versus the fan reactions to this stuff, which was made on the cheap. They're going to have to acknowledge this somehow. That's like, hey, maybe we are taking stuff in the wrong direction and we should like go more towards what Terry and his crew are doing. You know what I mean? Or the Strange New Worlds. Because I know, Strange New Worlds is it feels like Star Trek to me. And I know Terry I don't think he has anything to do with it. But it's such a polar difference from Discovery and the first 2 seasons of Picard that everybody universally just despises. Yeah. So if they come through this at the end and can't acknowledge it somehow, then there's a problem. But if the company can pivot and give Terry a show or whatever they need to do, then I will have a little more faith in that things can change. But we just have to be loud about it. But I know I was critical about this show a little bit at the beginning of this thing, but I still enjoy this show. I'm very happy with what we've gotten so far. And it's like I said, I kind of need some of these Roddenberries and things to kind of bring me back. You know what I mean?
Yeah, but I think fan service. I don't know why. When did fan service become like a negative thing?
I don't know.
Like
since the sequel trilogies to Star Wars.
Okay, but here's the deal though. Yeah. Like there's Roddenberries and there's Memberberries, right? Mm-hmm. Like there's fan service that actually has a purpose and it celebrates 70 years of Star Trek. And some people that have literally been watching for that long, for the love of God. Mm-hmm. And there's Memberberries that don't do anything but just sort of placate fans. Yeah, I guess the latter is not a good idea, but that doesn't mean we throw out the former. Like, it's good to have connection to a 60-year-old franchise. Like, come on. Like, you have to have connection. You don't just do something new every single time. Mm-hmm. Yes, if it's pandering, it's bad. But if it's part of the story, then yes, there's 70 years of stories here. Like, you should be able to go to that well and use, and of course, you have to also follow canon. that the problem with Discovery is they wanted to be the first and everything. They wanted to transform it into their own image. Brian Fuller, that guy does not get enough credit for how bad Discovery is. I'm telling you, he doesn't. You know, and maybe he got fired or whatever, but he put this turd out there, and then Kurtzman shined it up and offered it to everyone on a plate.
Did he make it a perfect turd?
A perfect turd. The thing is, though, like he worked on Voyager, he worked on these other shows, and he was a good writer. He was a good PA, whatever, right? Well, he was given this opportunity to make Discovery. He no longer had a boss. And he's like, I'm going to make it in my image. That's the problem, though. Like Star Trek already has an image. You can't make Star Trek in your image. You can't do your version of Star Trek.
Yeah.
There's already a Star Trek. This is not a new franchise.
Let's talk about this image thing just really quick. So there's a lot of complaints about how dark and everything that this show is.
Like lighting wise, not tone.
Well, it's lighting wise, and you know, and how dark the bridges are. You know, and I think we talk about this almost every week, but I understand that, but at the same time, I don't know if I would make a show like this and have it look exactly like the Next Generation looked in 1987, and I any more than when they made the Next Generation in 1987 looked like the original series looked in 1968. You know, technology evolves. You know, we have better lighting techniques. We have better cameras,
sensors, better TVs.
Exactly. And I'm just trying to think. I've been trying to figure out what I would do if I made a new Star Trek show, and other than the fact I'd maybe make it a little bit brighter so you can tell the difference between gold and red uniforms a little better. I don't think I would do a whole lot different because I really like the cinematic approach to what this show looks like. You know what I mean? But yeah, it could be a little brighter, but I like the aesthetic. I love how the ships look. I like the interiors. It just seems so more real.
I'll tell you
I'm 100% with you. I prefer cinematic all the time.
Yeah.
I'll tell you this: if the Titan were a warship, I could see that using this dark cinematic look to it. The thing is like the exploratory vessels of the Federation are meant to be like long-term habitats where families live and stuff like that. And so like if you're an exploratory vessel like the Titan is, you need to be bright and aesthetically pleasing to the people who live on the ship. Otherwise, you're going to go insane, right? So I feel like there should have been like in the like context of the story, there should have been something about that bridge and the design of the Titan that was a little bit like lighter and friendlier and homier than your typical like military vessel.
Well, right? Except for the Titan is no longer a family, but there's no families on the ship anymore.
Well, but like Shaw specifically said, our mission is to explore.
Right.
And so like if you have that long-term exploratory mission, you're going to be away from like everything for a long time. So you need to have something that is livable, right? Like we're talking like year-long mission, like 5-year missions, stuff like that.
But you want to go back to TNG with like some plush carpet and some like plants in the corner?
Why not? It worked for 7 years.
Plants never made sense.
I always thought that was weird.
But
I always thought it was weird that the Enterprise had whole families with schools and grade school and Captain Picard Day and all that weird shit.
They're getting in fights with literal gods. You shouldn't be on that ship, bro.
No, not at all. Never. I totally agree. Yeah.
But literal gods are batting them around the galaxy, and you're going to take your family on that ship? Get out of here.
To that point, me and Lamar have talked about, I think when we reviewed the new Mortal Kombat, how remember like the old Mortal Kombat, all the fight scenes had a different aesthetic, and then the new one, they were all. So at least with TNG, kind of like what Matt was saying, okay, the Enterprise had a certain aesthetic, but Klingon warships, they had their own thing. Like battleships had their own lighting and stuff. So with this, I can see what you're saying. Like every ship is dark. No matter where you are, it's dark. So throw some different things in there. Like give it its own character for every ship or whatever.
Well, what about J.J. Abrams' Star Trek, where it's so bright it looks like the inside of an Apple store?
You don't like the lens flares everywhere?
Like,
because it's
new. the bridge of the Enterprise for the 2009 Star Trek. It's so bright, dude.
Yeah,
but if you look at how they adapted that to Strange New Worlds, like the Strange New Worlds bridge looks great. Like it's very aesthetically pleasing.
People complain about that being too dark too.
Well, I mean, like you can actually see stuff on that bridge.
Yeah, it's very colorful.
Yeah.
Script Doctor dropping some knowledge into chat today. So
yeah. So like these long-term exploratory missions, like you need to have families with them if you actually want people to sign up to do them. Real quick, we got 2 super chats we need to get to before we move on to Mandalorian.
I'm not seeing them.
It's in the starred tab, Vader.
Oh, okay. Wait, not that one. Here we go.
All right, Ron Cook for $5. I didn't realize someone gifted me a membership. Thanks to who did. I believe that might have been JT. He's always in there gifting memberships to people. But Ron, thank you for being a member, even if you didn't do it willingly. And thank you for the $5.
How does that work? Does it just randomly select people to give memberships to? Really?
Yes. Yeah, that's what it does.
And then what happens at the end of their membership period?
It goes away.
Doesn't renew. And we got a super sticker for 99 cents or pounds, whatever that is, from Gavin Blackburn, our resident super sticker poster. Thank you, Gavin. Always appreciate the support. And we got a new member to the Salty Nerd membership.
Monkey Jeebus.
Yes. Monkey Jeebus has just become a member. Thank you, Monkey. We appreciate it.
That's awesome.
Yeah. All right, guys. So we've talked about Star Trek. Let's talk about another failed sci-fi franchise. The Mandalorian season 3, episode 3. So we had a couple of news bits drop this week about the Mandalorian. First of all, the premiere episode, I believe, pulled in 1.5 million views over the course of 4 days. And there are YouTube channels out there that their videos get more in 24 hours, more views in 24 hours than the Mandalorian.
There's YouTube channels where their Mandalorian videos get more.
Yeah.
That's the pathetic part.
And basically the 3rd season of Mando is underperforming the Book of Boba Fett right now.
Wait, did you say it's doing worse than Book of Boba Fett?
It's doing worse somehow.
It's doing worse.
Oh, wow. That's not good.
Yeah. And basically Lucasfilm has been leaking that they're building up a huge crossover thing between Mandalorian, Ahsoka, the Skeleton Crew show, which hasn't premiered yet, and a couple other in this like post Last Jedi time frame, where basically all these shows are going to build up to some type of like huge crossover event that's going to basically be kind of like how Marvel did the whole like Infinity War type thing. And nobody cares.
Much blander, and no one really cares.
Yeah, nobody cares.
Endgame was a masterpiece that required 12 movies to set it up, and not the same.
So we're 3 episodes into The Mandalorian. This was a bit of a departure from their typical formula because we start off with Mando and Bo-Katan. We ended with them, but in between we get a kind of side plot story over to Coruscant, starring Lieutenant Biscuits, which nobody knows how she survived the ship. The actress herself even came out and said, I don't know how I survived that. Nobody told me anything. And we get this character who's been kind of like in and out of the previous Mandalorian seasons, and he kind of played a big role with Baby Yoda and like the whole cloning thing. And we kind of see like him basically get his mind wiped and all this other stuff after reintegrating with the New Republic. And a lot of people are saying this is like a cut episode of Andor that's bookended by a really short episode of The Mandalorian, which I guess is a valid criticism. I happen to like all the stuff on Coruscant and all that.
I want to interject one little thing. To me, this episode, the bookends with Bo-Katan and Mando. It feels to me like they took that out of the end. That should have been the end scenes of the last episode. Because I think if somebody edited those 2 into the last episode, because it picks up right where the other one ended, that I feel like they purposely edited it that way so that people couldn't say, oh, we got this standalone story on Coruscant with Doctor Nobody Gives a Crap about. You know what I mean? Because at least this way, people can't say that there wasn't a Mandalorian episode without the Mandalorian in it, and that's what this would have been had they not chopped these two bookends off of the end of the last episode. You know what I'm saying? It's what it seems like to me. But anyway, go ahead.
So here's the thing. So basically, in this episode, we realize that that there's an Imperial kind of like remnant out there, which is much stronger than anyone's seen since the fall of the Empire, right?
Mm-hmm.
Bo-Katan was just kind of chalking up the attack on them to a Imperial warlord until an entire fleet of TIE interceptors shows up to fuck them up, essentially. And you got TIE bombers as well. And so there's a little bit of a mystery going on there. But I think that, we see that Lieutenant Biscuits is basically like a sleeper agent who's there to mind wipe this cloning expert guy who basically went over to the New Republic. And I think that just knowing how Dave Filoni works and the Ahsoka series and stuff like that, what we're building up to here and what we've been building up to since season 1 is basically Thrawn. Like Thrawn is out there. He's reorganizing the remnants of the Empire. And if you read the books that Thrawn, was first shown in, his whole thing is about cloning people with force powers so that he can control them and use them to coordinate fleets over like long distances and stuff like that. And so that makes sense with why they wanted Baby Yoda, because he's force sensitive, and they want to clone him so that they can genetically engineer these Imperial force users that Thrawn can command. And Moff Gideon, we learned in this episode, not only survived but escaped. He's now out there up to no good, and I think that he's reporting directly to Thrawn. And Thrawn is also a big part of Rebels and the Ahsoka series. So I think that this is all kind of like building up to a Thrawn kind of resurrecting the Empire, and the Mandalorians are going to be the army that faces him and ultimately defeats him, which will probably lead into the creation of the what was it, the Kylo Ren thing, the First Order. Mm-hmm. So I think I see that they're laying the groundwork for all this stuff, but a lot of people who were watching the show, they're just like, Mando sends baby Grogu to get Bo-Katan, and then she flies between planets and comes and rescues him. It's like, why couldn't she have just gone with him in the first place when he went to ask her for help? Would have saved a lot of time and effort and stuff like that. There's a lot of
shit. Yeah.
She was just sitting there chilling out on her throne, and then she gets upset that her big empty castle gets leveled by the TIE bombers, and now since she bathed in the living waters and she hasn't taken her helmet off, she's now found her people once again with that clan.
I don't buy that. I don't buy that at all.
There are some good things about this show, but for the most part, it's pretty ridiculous. And I want to get everyone's take on this. So Brian, let's start with you. What was your take on episode 3, Converts?
It's really boring. I mean, it's just boring. I don't know what's going on. So Andor, at the very least, even though it was boring as hell, you can tell it had a good story and it was really set up well, cinematically, or the cinematography and everything. This show is just really boring, and I don't really care about the characters, and I don't think I care about. I think the Mandalorians, all of the growth the character growth that we experienced in the first 2 seasons are completely going backwards for seemingly no reason. And I'm gonna be sacrilegious here, but I think I'm getting tired of Grogu. I think that maybe Grogu's got to start talking. I know they'll never do that, but
they can't get rid of Grogu because they have to sell merch.
Yeah,
I get it. He was adorable, but there's a point where the adorability is no longer adorable.
I'll totally agree with you.
Yes. And I'm over it.
So I do want to highlight this from Joker Voice.
Yeah.
Lieutenant Biscuits was killed at the end of season 2. Bo, Kasha Reeves, Fennec Shand, and Cara Dune took the bridge of Moff Gideon's ship and killed all the officers, including her. How is she still alive? Is she a clone? Could that be it? Is that why she didn't like Mr. Clone Guy?
Yeah, I also think cloning is cheating. I don't know.
Because that's the answer. Just because.
Hey,
don't ask
somehow,
questions.
Somehow
Don't ask
Palpatine
questions.
returned. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, like, but they could have done that in a way that made a lot of sense and was really rad. They didn't.
Mm-hmm.
It didn't make any sense. It actually.
Yeah, so here's the thing, and this is probably what they're counting on. There's people out there like me who haven't watched that episode 1,500 times. I watched it once, maybe twice. I didn't even remember that character from the previous episodes. So I'm like, okay, so some Imperial chick from Moff Gideon's fleet, some rando that he passed by in the ship, they recognize each other. That's how I took it. I didn't even know that she had already played the same role in a past episode and got killed on the bridge. But whatever.
I didn't really either.
So I'm not a hardcore fan of this stuff enough to where I'm going to analyze it that deeply. I'm finding myself not caring about this show. You have to know too much of the lore from the Filoni cartoons to be able to really get into this stuff.
The cartoons
and it's nonsense.
Yeah, how dare you expect us to watch the cartoons to understand the live action?
Right,
it's ridiculous. You can add some cool like tricks, member berries or like Easter eggs in there that are related, so that fans of the cartoons are also pleased. But don't make it a pivotal part of the story.
Yeah, these aren't just like having some callbacks to the cartoons. These are direct continuations of the storyline cartoons.
Yeah, everyone's excited about Osaka, and I'm like, who's Osaka?
Osaka's it's in Japan. That's where Osaka is.
Is that not the name of the show? Osaka?
Ahsoka.
Whatever. Okay, but she's a cartoon character, right?
You gotta get it right.
But she's a cartoon character, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So like they're gonna invest live action money into that character?
Yeah. I mean, granted, Ahsoka, she is one of the few characters that they should be able to bring back to the screen. She was in the cartoons, she was, Anakin's Padawan, and it could probably I haven't even been drinking. It could probably be said that Ahsoka is the main character of the overall story arcs in the animated shows. One of the main characters, top 3, possibly. But and if there's any character that I want to see developed into its own stuff, it would be her. But that being said, we're getting Mando and we're getting, Boba Fett with another side character and Fennec Shand and all this kind of stuff. And it's just, I'm just not that interested. And then, when they go and they do stuff to like our boy Obi-Wan and how they did that show so dirty. I'm just like
bro, I will never forget.
I'm just checked out of Star Wars, and I'm watching it in a very passive way, and it really hurts.
Yeah,
it really hurts.
Clocking in. Yeah. Remember in Obi-Wan when they drove up to the gate, and they got out of the car, and they could have clearly just
walked around the gate.
Yeah. I mean, like. It's like they expect fans.
I really like the time.
We have the brains of like 9-year-olds that are watching.
Hey, remember that time? Remember that time that Darth Vader force grabbed an entire starship and made it crash land into the plane?
I mean, that could have been cool if it was if there was a setup to it. You can't just you can't give us a payoff with no setup.
But
remember the game Force Unleashed where the guy's like pulling the ship, the Star Killer, whatever his name is.
Star Destroyer.
He's pulling the destroyer out of there was an entire 2 games that set up that epic, the Darth Vader thing wasn't earned at all. It just he can do that now. So he just decided not to do that for the last 30 years. Okay. All right.
Yeah, and remember how remember how that apprentice of his I forget her name, but the interrogator or girl.
Oh yeah. Oh god.
Instantly knew that Luke was Darth Vader's child.
Yeah, and I don't know why.
We got a game of remember. We have a game of remember when going on.
Moses.
We need to talk about
Moses?
the Mandalorian.
Remember that time Darth Vader kicked Obi-Wan's butt, and then like in A New Hope, he says like, you know, oh, you last we met, you were the master. Yeah.
I'm getting these images, you know, because Filoni and Favreau, they say they make this story and because they sit around and they talk like nerds and they come up with all these great ideas. And that is not really the best way to write something that's supposed to be this big of a deal, right? I mean, that's how the sequel trilogy got made. They got a bunch of SJWs in a room in San Francisco with a couple of whiteboards in front of them. And they're all like, okay, dorks, what do you want to have in this show? And they start putting all these things up on the whiteboard, and dinosaurs gets written 3 times, and you know, stupid shit like that. And it's just
big boobies.
It's like
14 times.
Yeah. And
slave labor.
I don't know. I don't know what to say about this. This Mandalorian episode was just the Coruscant stuff I initially sort of liked when it first came out. I even made a tweet about it, about how, hey, I found this interesting. I never said it was good, guys. Don't put words in my mouth. But I said it was interesting. But then you watch it again and you start seeing more things, and you just start seeing things like the stupid popsicles. It's like, oh, look, there's another marketing gimmick for them to sell some shit in Galaxy's Edge and Disneyland. They're going to have glow-in-the-dark popsicles. They're probably there now for $18 a piece.
Did you notice that the evil character had a red popsicle?
Oh no, I did. Of course I did. But all those, I think all those were those lightsabers gimmick spoons.
Dude,
I saw a tweet of a picture. It's like somebody said, "I know what those are," and it was literally like a spoon with a lightsaber handle that glowed red. It was the dumbest thing.
Dude, you know the blue milk? You know Luke's blue milk? They sell that at Disneyland, right?
Yeah, they do.
Check this out. I'm never gonna get over this, dude. I have 2 kids. I took my kids to Disneyland at the end of last year for the first time in like 5 years. It was like $500 just to get my family in. They all wanted the blue milk.
Yeah,
$30 a bottle.
And I have another question.
It cost me $100 to drink fucking blue milk.
Milk with blue dye in it. Stupid.
So stupid.
So they're at some kind of festival, right? You know, in this show with Coruscant, and there's a rock in the middle of the park. So what I want to know, and I think I heard this, is they said that was the peak of the tallest mountain of the land level of Coruscant, right?
Yep.
So is that literally like the city is built so high in the sky that the very tippy top of Mount Everest is peeking through the middle of this park, and they have a fence around it? So that's what they can go up there and look at and go, ooh, that's the top of Mount Everest. That's really cool. And then they just like, is that what I'm hearing? Is that correct?
That sounds absurd.
It's like the biggest FU to, like, you know, the environment and everything like that. You know what? Remember this mountain that was naturally built? We just built a bunch of shit on it.
So underneath Coruscant proper, there's an actual planet with continents and an ocean and stuff down there. Is that what I'm
really?
They actually explained in this episode how like Coruscant's one of like 4 planets in the galaxy that has like a planet-wide city, and why it's like that. I'd have to go back and rewatch to remember that. But real quick, we got a $5 super chat from John Kakaza, our favorite photographer. The editing of episode 3 was very bad. Flow was off, too boring. So I re-edited it to break up the segments. Sent the link, Matt, in your Twitter DM.
Oh, cool. I'll check it out.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I want to hear from. Hold on a sec, Brian. I want to hear from Joe and Lamar, their take on this. Now, have you guys been keeping up with the Mandalorian and the Star Wars TV shows?
I'll say this: I might have to let Lamar do most of the. I'm so done. I've seen all the Star Wars movies, but all the other stuff, the cartoons, all these other shows, like, I'm so unenthusiastic about it that. Even I don't know any of these characters, so I just came into this episode and I'm like, I don't even know what any of this is. The one thing I will say, the biggest confusion I have is, how is a character named Lieutenant Biscuits? Is that like a real, like, is that a nickname?
like they never bothered to give this character a name, so nobody knows what her name is. And at the end of the episode, like she's eating these like Imperial biscuit rations, so we're just calling her Lieutenant Biscuits because I mean they did give her a name in this episode, but nobody remembers it. So
that was like last season of Picard when everyone just called Gerardi Jaborgi the whole time.
Jaborgi, yeah.
So in the first episode, she was Murder Doctor because no one could remember her name because her name's ridiculous. Okay. And then we learned her name, and then they changed her into a Borg, and everybody was calling it. So it was Murder Doctor, then it was Jaborgi.
Yeah, if somebody in chat wants to IMDb it and look up her actual character's name and pop it in the chat.
Well, that makes a little more because I'm watching the chat and I'm hearing you guys. I'm like, no, that can't be right. I don't remember seeing that.
They gave her like an identification number, and I don't know. Like, isn't that like okay? This is the New Republic, right?
Yeah.
This is the New Republic that's not supposed to be like this totalitarian, like government and everything like that. But you're giving people like ID number names. Isn't that kind of reminiscent of what you were kind of fighting against and stuff like that? Like, and these are people like that are scientists. So that was weird.
That would be like winning World War II and then acting like Nazis.
Yeah, like, oh well, we're just gonna put the things on you.
Okay, we beat them. Also, we also do not like the Jews.
Yeah, it's a weird thing. Like, and Matt Vader, you said it perfectly. This episode was edited in such a bad way where it's like, well, we have this exciting scene where they have to escape from the ships and everything. Oh, we're gonna put in this like very slow like spy thing going on and stuff like that. And I just checked out after that. And it's like I understand it serves a purpose, but the problem is it's just like they know who Gideon is. And people are like, oh, you used to work for, this evil bastard that, tried to, bring back the Empire. Oh, okay. Well, everybody get a drink. It's like,
I was going to bring that topic up here in a little bit, but I want Lamar to finish his stuff.
No, that's it. Go ahead.
That's it. So Joker, this chat, mind wiping because Leah, who is in charge basically of the New Republic, would totally approve of that practice. So you are correct. I don't know, but she's definitely up there.
I know that in the EU books she was, but I think right now Mon Mothma and crew are probably.
Here's my point. So, and I think one of the things I actually almost kind of liked about this episode was that they showed that much like our own government, there really isn't a whole lot of difference between what goes on, and it doesn't matter who's in charge. The Republicans, the Democrats, all of that nonsense is still happening. All of the weird, crazy stuff that we don't know about is still happening. It's all lip service. And I'm not going to go into a big political tirade here, but it just was intriguing to me, like how they just showed that it doesn't matter who's in charge, bad stuff is going to go on. I mean, World War II got over and we let the Nazis build our space program.
Yeah, we hired them. Paperclip.
Yeah, we went on the moon because of Nazis.
Yeah.
It's fact. We used Nazi technology to build our space program.
Yeah,
it's a fact. It's the way it is. I don't know, man. It's very strange to me how they are telling the story. I would think that they would want to tell us a story about how great the New Republic is, but instead it's like, oh, we're just going to scramble your brain a little bit, and it's not going to hurt as much as if the Empire people had done it. In fact, you might get a good trip out of it. Here, it'd be like smoking a little weed or something. And, it's just, I don't know. It's just very strange. So that's all I had to say. But yeah, Joker's correct. They're playing with some morality stuff here that's very interesting to me. So that's all I got.
I do like that when they were talking to him about the enhanced interrogation he was going to go through, that the guy was like, oh, I went through it yesterday. It was quite what do you call it? Quite relaxing. I just thought that was
Yeah, but how would you know? Like, you could have been screaming if they wiped your brain. Like, it was not that bad. Oh well, somebody else thought that you were screaming for your life.
Here's the funny thing. So you had that Mon Calamarian there, kind of like talking to the doctor, and as the doctor's on the table, he was like, "It was a trap," and the subtitles were right under the shot of the Mon Calamarian. I was like, okay, that was a pretty good joke right there. That was a perfect meme for that thing. Yeah. So this show obviously is struggling right now. Viewership is down. What can be done to fix it, guys? At this point, how do you get people back into Star Wars?
I think Star Wars needs to go away. I think it needs to go away for about 10 to 15 years, which makes me sad because I'll probably die and not ever see Star Wars again. But it needs to go away for 10, 15 years, and somebody needs to come along and just revive the Star Wars world after that. And I don't even know how they would do it then, but it needs to go away. We need to have some desire for Star Wars again, because right now we're being inundated with it. And I know that sounds like Star Wars fatigue, but that's not really what I'm saying. There was a time in my life, I don't know, I mean, you guys are probably remember too, between when Return of the Jedi came out and what was the terrible first movie, the fourth one, and Phantom Menace, where we got no Star Wars. We got some books and some comic books once in a while, but that was it. But we didn't have all these stupid, silly streaming services to what the problem is that these streaming services need content, and the content that they're making with all our IPs in them are not good series. And it doesn't matter if it's what it is, it's Star Wars or Star Trek or Marvel or DC or anything. They're milking our childhoods, for lack of a better word, and they're doing it poorly. By inserting all this nonsense social justice bullshit in them, and it's just not good. And some of these things, they just need to go away and just start making normal movies again for the next 10 years and have somebody go in there and revisit it. But I'm starting to ramble here now. So Matt, what do you think needs to be done?
Well, here's the real problem, right? Lucasfilm is run by idiots who are systematically tanking every single one of their most valuable IPs. And that brings us to our next topic today, which is that the Willow TV show has been canceled. Now, for those of you who don't know, the Willow TV show was kind of developed by Jonathan Kasdan, who's Lawrence Kasdan's son, and probably least talented son. He was the writer behind Solo, and he's done a couple movies on his own, which weren't very good. And so when I found out that he was the one kind of leading the charge on the Willow show, I was like, oh, this is going to be a freaking disaster. And sure enough, after one season, Deadline is reporting that Willow has been canceled on Disney Plus. And it says here, Willow, which picked up years after the events of the film, did not have the zeitgeist cultural impact of the original, but was well received by critics, getting an 83% on Rotten Tomatoes. While the series won't continue, Willow remains an important IP at the Lucasfilm library, so it might be revisited in the future. Basically, there was no buzz on this thing. I watched the first 2 episodes, and it was such a terrible CW cluster. Like cluster. Yeah, like it was it was hitting every intersectional point you could think of at the expense of the story. Like they turned Willow into like a lying fraudster on his own show after like he had that great journey in the movie. And now just yesterday, Deadline updated this story by saying that series creator John Kasdan on Thursday categorized Willow's status as more of a pause than a cancellation, noting that season 2 has been written and he hopes that it will eventually be made, but not for at least the next 12 months, leading to the decision to release the cast. Now, guys, if you release your cast to go off and do other things while you're trying to get a second season made, is that not a cancellation? Like, how do you get them back to come back in and do this show? And anyone who saw this show knows how absolutely terrible it was. I don't think people watched past the premiere, which was the first 2 episodes. I don't think most people did.
Nope.
And not only were the viewership numbers probably bad, but it wasn't hitting like right after like it released and everyone kind of like hit the social medias and said how terrible it was. There was like people just dropped it like a cold stone. Like there was like no more buzz about it at all. And so it just kind of got forgotten and died on the vine. And now that Bob Iger's back and he's trying to like focus more on revenue as opposed to just like pumping out content, he's like, yeah, we're not going to do another one of these. And so like you have a situation with Lucasfilm where basically all the Star Wars movies are kind of on pause right now. You're seeing a decrease in ratings for their flagship Star Wars shows. The buzz around Indy 5 is not very good. Willow's getting canceled. It's just like one failure after another for Lucasfilm. At what point do they start switching things up? Brian, I wanted to hear your take on this.
Yeah, I actually have an idea for something. I think there are 2 kinds of bad TV. There is bad TV where the studio, the showrunner, the writers are all in on the badness. They're preaching it's an agenda. They're the narrative they're trying to set, and they're trying to use legacy franchises to do it because it's easier to do that than to set up your own franchise. And let's be real, no one's gonna buy in to a new franchise or a new story that is using a lot of those checkbox narratives. So it's easier to co-opt stuff people already like, right? That's the first kind. The second kind is showrunners that do actually care about the product. I believe Terry Mattel is one of them. I do believe Favreau and Filoni are people that care about Star Wars, but they're being co-opted and they're being cucked for lack of another word, by the studio, not just to meet their quotas, their checkbox social justice quotas, but to also sell merchandise, right? So Willow's in the same boat. Like, let's remember this, Disney is not, everyone thinks that Disney is this family-friendly conservative business. That's not what they are.
Nobody thinks that.
I mean, no, normies think that though. That's what I'm saying.
I suppose.
They're not though. They're not. They are literally filled to the brim with blue-haired liberal virtue warriors. And if you're one of those people, I'm not downing you. What I'm saying is, when you fill your entire business with one kind of person, right? That is the definition of an echo chamber, which means that you aren't going to appeal to the other half. And I would argue there isn't a split half here. I believe the majority, the silent majority, is people that just don't care about this stuff as much as you do. And that tiny percentage of really loud people that you hired care the most. So when you put out a product that is tailor-made for those people, right? Or tailor-made for people trying to preach a message, then all of us apathetic people that just want to be entertained are like, now we're good, and it fails. So I do think that there are showrunners that care about the product, but they're cucked by the studio. I think Filoni and Favreau had the opportunity to do whatever they wanted for the first couple of seasons of Mandalorian, and it was working out. I think they saw the success of that franchise, and I think people got involved. It's very clear that there has been changes made to the fundamental way the show was made to push more merchandise and to check more boxes. Do you think that all of a sudden Filoni and Favreau just decided to do that? Willow, on the other hand, started off being ran by the hyper blue hairs. Right. Like, it just started off that way. It's not Warwick Davis's fault. Warwick Davis is getting a paycheck, coming back. He's going to do his best for this role. But it's in its blood. Like, so Mandalorian was sort of taken over by that regime because it was popular. Willow, on the other hand, the new Willow literally started off with the framework of trying to tell a story to what is a small percentage of society actually cares about.
Yep.
They think there's two sides of the aisle here. No, there isn't. There's like 84%, and this much. It's not 50-50.
It's more like 95 and 5.
I've actually had a couple of like exchanges with Jonathan Kasdan on Twitter in the past, and I feel bad for the guy because he seems like he's willing to engage with certain fans, and Solo was a big blow to him. But like, this is a guy who is like objectively not very talented. He has a very talented dad who wrote, one of the greatest Star Wars movies of all time. And he got the job through nepotism, not talent. And I think that's Lucasfilm's big issue right now is the fact that Kathleen Kennedy filled it with sycophants and political appointees as opposed to actual talented people. Like she made a big deal about, the writer's room is all women. It's like, well, yeah, but they haven't written anything good. Why are you hiring bad writers for a writer's room, type thing. Lamar, Joe, I wanted to get, you guys are very well versed in bad movies. So I want to get your takes on this. What do you think is the driving force behind Willow getting canceled and why Lucasfilm is in such a terrible place right now?
I'm going to say this, like, I love Willow, the movie. And that's the big. I've come to accept the fact that they're going to take stuff from the past because they own these IPs and they're going to keep trying to milk them for what they're worth. But there's a trend going on where they take beloved things, beloved characters, and they make those characters like into assholes. Like they make them unlikable and stuff. And from our perspective, like with the B movies, at least like people love those stuff. Like they're so into it, the B movie community. Like they don't want to wreck stuff from the past. They just want to make it cooler. Where there's just like this weird thing going on with these mainstream things. Like, let's take something from your childhood, but make it not that. Make it not all the things that you used to love about it for whatever, if it's a political thing or whatever, I don't know. But I don't know. Like, it's so like I saw it coming from the get-go. I was like, oh, they're bringing back Willow. Okay, that's gonna suck. They're gonna make it into what? Something dark and goofy with a message, and I don't know.
Well, I just want to throw out the fact that I also heard this news, and I sent a text to Joe and a friend of ours, Peter, and I was like, yeah, you guys are the reason that Willow failed because you guys didn't watch it out of like YouTube people. But to go off of like, I think Brian, you made a very good point because I'm very much into video games. I don't know if you guys follow video games. What you just said explains what happened to a game that I loved called Saints Row. And they basically made it so watered down. And not even that, they attacked people for criticisms for the new look of it. And then after the game fails, people, and they're still like, well, why didn't you like this? It's like, I'm sorry to say, we told you what we wanted. We told you like, what we wanted the game to be. We're not asking it for it to like just be like a remake, but you guys just spat in our face. And I think that's what happens with a lot of these shows. I think what happens is like, okay, we have something that, we know works, but, we're going to change it to try to fit it to this audience rather than make something new. And then like to go back to the video game thing, Hogwarts Legacy kind of proved the opposite because of all the things about the writer, how she felt about the trans community. People were going to be like, oh, this isn't going to succeed. Yeah, it did. It like blew the roof off of like just, sales and everything like that.
Yeah, their complaints actually pushed it further.
Yeah,
because again, tiny percentage of people complaining, but they're really loud complaining and giving all this huge publicity to the other 95% of people that don't really care about what their complaints are.
Yeah. So I'll say this, like, are there offensive things that I see in TV and movies? Sure. But the problem is this, is that, when you look at your audience, who is going to be paying the most money for the product? Is it going to be the people that are just wanting to see something good or the people that are complaining about like every little thing? And
the uniting thing between whether it's the people that want the message or whatever, the political stuff, the uniting thing is that it's a movie that we all loved from the past.
Yeah.
So you don't have to let's divide the audience.
One of my top 10s, man.
It's like, it's stupid to divide your audience when you have a movie that everyone loves universally. So I don't get it.
Yeah.
Well, clearly, if you love clearly if you hate something that they make nowadays, they always just use the you're a racist. It's your fault. You're some kind of Easterphobe, and it's not ever their fault that they made a bad product.
Yeah,
it's our fault because we have problems and can't accept their stupid ideology and nonsense that they've inserted into our IPs.
Yeah,
not ours. It's nonsense.
Here's my tortured metaphor for how the fan base interacts with Lucasfilm. Okay, so let's say you're hungry and you want to order some pizza. So you call up Lucas Pizza and you're like, "Hey, Lucas Pizza, I'm really hungry. Can you send me a pepperoni pizza?" They're like, "Yeah, we'll give that to you." So they show up and they're like, "Here's your pizza." And you look at the pizza and you're like, "Wait, this isn't what I ordered." They're like, "Oh, don't worry, you'll like it." It's like, "No, this pizza has anchovies on it. I don't like anchovies. I wanted a pepperoni pizza." And they're like, "Anchovies are better for you." And it's like, "Look, I don't want anchovies. I wanted pepperoni." And they're like, "Oh, you have a problem with anchovies? What's wrong with you? Hey guys, everyone, check out this guy. He doesn't like anchovies." And it's like, okay, fine. Like, look, I don't have a problem with anchovies. I just don't like eating anchovies. Yeah. Right? Like, you're gonna eat these anchovies and you're gonna like it. And I'm like, you know what? I want.
Or you're a bad person.
Or you're a bad person. Here's your pizza back. I don't want it. And they're like, okay, fine. We have this other pizza that has pineapple and broccoli on it. You want that instead? And you're like, why can't I get my pepperoni pizza? And they're like, we don't make pepperoni pizza anymore. This is for modern consumers. Take this and eat it. And so you're just like, okay, fine. I guess I'll eat this pepperoni or this pineapple and broccoli pizza, but I don't enjoy it and I'm not going to order from you again. And then they're like, why is everyone not ordering our pizza? Don't they know how hard we work at these things? Like, that's basically what's going on.
Because it's bad.
Exactly.
Yeah. That actually happened to a friend of ours. It's the Wilfredo story where what was it, Dunkin' Donuts?
Yeah.
And he just likes black coffee. He just wants a black coffee. He goes up to the counter and it's black tea. And he's like, well, I know I told him black coffee. And so he goes to the girl and he's like, hey, I wanted a black coffee. Can you swap it out? And she's like, well, no. And he's like, well, I just want black coffee. And she goes, well, it's healthier for you. And he's just like, I just want black coffee. I'm not like, I just want what I ordered. And it's just crazy. And that's how, unfortunately, like a lot of these big corporations, I don't know, like the money is going to make them wake up.
Yeah.
Well, it does boggle my mind in the sense that, like, so you have Kathleen Kennedy in charge of Lucasfilm, right? And she's like, well, everyone already loves Star Wars. So we want to try to grow the audience by focusing on audiences that have been marginalized, like women, people of color, stuff like that. We want to bring more of those people into Star Wars. But, you know, women typically don't like science fiction stuff, so like they change the thing that everyone loves to appeal to these smaller audience segments to try to bring them in. And at the same time, they're alienating huge blocks of the segment that they had. And they know that like at least 50%, as long as it has the Star Wars name on it, they're going to like it no matter how bad it is. Yeah. But they've lost like such a huge market share of their audience by trying to bring in smaller bits of the audience and telling the other people that, like, oh, we don't like you. This is not for you. It's your fault that you don't like this. The same thing happened with Ghostbusters 2016. And like this whole idea that like it's your fault if you don't like something boggles my mind. Like why any studio thinks that that's a winning tactic.
Yeah. And it's not just the studios though. It's in all of our entertainment. It's in video games. It's in comic books. It's in literature. It's in movies and television shows. All the stuff that we like, man. They're just like saying, and then they double down. You know, it's like you would think they would get the message, right? But how many more of these terrible live action soy infested Disney remakes are we getting? You know, Peter Pan, Little Mermaid. There's been 20 of them made prior to this.
As many as required.
The Buzz Lightyear thing didn't work out for them. They keep getting the message sent to them that we do not want these products. We're not going to spend money on this shit.
Yeah, we don't want broccoli pineapple pizza.
But something somewhere in the Disney world doesn't care. And I don't understand how they can keep not making money. They have to be making money on this, right? Or are they not? Are they just so tunnel visioned into their new nonsense? It makes no sense to me how this can continue.
It definitely is tunnel vision, because I use this example to go back to Star Wars. It's like, okay, Lando Calrissian, I like that black character, like him, awesome.
One of my favorite all-time
cool
characters.
Cape and everything. Then you get Mace Windu, maybe not the best.
He's literally a space pimp.
Yeah,
he's a space pimp.
He's cool.
Doesn't get cooler than that.
And then you have Mace Windu, not written terribly great, but okay, purple lightsaber, very staunch and everything. And then you get Finn, and it's like, did you not see the first two iterations, like how they were kind of written, like how kids might like those? And I have a friend of mine he's black, and he took his son to go see, and he's like, man, that Finn character sucked. And it's like,
it was almost
not get it,
yeah.
like it's that kind of thing. And then it's like, okay, if you go to women, Princess Leia was like a hallmark of a hero for like women and stuff like that. But then you have Rey, who does like everything, and then you're like, well, why don't you like Rey? It's like, do you not see the dots not connected?
And Leia was the hallmark of a woman while maintaining her feminine, personality, her femininity. Yeah. Characters can't do that anymore. Like women characters, they have to act and dress and compete in some way, whatever. With men, it's a very odd thing. You are leaving out the best part of what makes this person. The females are awesome, women are awesome. Why are you trying to take away everything that makes a woman awesome, right? And why do we have to put down one to raise another? Why can't you celebrate their feminine qualities? What makes them different is what makes them special, bro.
They can't
infinite combinations, infinite diversity.
They can't define what a woman is anymore, Brian. Like you ask anyone in Hollywood, what's a woman?
That's a whole other topic. I can't.
And it's the checklist too, because it's like you got to check off everything. It's like
I feel like we have this conversation about every other week.
But the thing with the Willow and even the Star Wars thing, like they sink hundreds of millions of dollars into these things, and it's like they keep falling flat. But something me and Lamar have been talking about a lot lately. If you look at a couple of movies that have had enormous return on investments, granted smaller amounts of money, Terrifier 2 and this Winnie the Pooh horror movie that just came out, they spent maybe a couple $100,000 and they've made millions because people just want something new.
I want to see Blood and Honey. Is it good?
It's not good.
It's goofy as all hell.
Terrifier 2, however, was a lot of fun. And that was like one of the things. They spent like a couple $100,000 making that.
Yeah.
And it made like $8 million at the box office, which
it's
tells
like
me
the idea. Like that, what a cool title that is. Blood and Honey.
Like, yeah. But it's just that thing, like, people are like, we want to see something wild and crazy and something different. We don't want to see
things like Cocaine Bear.
Yeah, Cocaine Bear.
Oh God, Cocaine Bear was awesome. You guys seen it yet?
I have not seen it yet, but I'm going to.
Oh, it's so great.
So it's like maybe it is time, like to what Matt Vader was saying, to put this stuff on the shelf for a while and take a risk on something else. There's some proof out there in the market that people want to see different stuff. So give it a try,
Yeah. People just want their escapism without a bunch of nonsense attached to it. Look at the John Wick movies.
Yeah. That's a good example.
John Wick 4 is going to kill.
Yeah.
It is going to destroy the box office.
Oh, you know what I noticed? And
I'm just saying it's because people want some escapism without a bunch of stupid SJW shit attached to it.
Right.
You know what I mean? That's it. That's all they want. Guy got his dog killed and it turned into this massive thing. That's it. Yeah. That's all there is.
Yeah.
They did some.
It's not very hard.
They did some cool world building got the world's best stuntmen and some cool people to play some role. And that's it. It's all it took, man. And
that dude passed away. The awesome
Lance Reddick.
Rest in peace, Lance Reddick.
I love that actor, man.
Yeah,
he's cool.
But yeah,
real quick. Real quick, we got a super chat from Joker Voice for $5. Disney won't change course until the FU money from the parks and ad revenue from ESPN cannot cover the losses of these IPs. Hashtag keep talking. It all does come down to money, doesn't it, guys? Like once their pocketbooks start hurting, that's when change happens.
Well, I got a question though. Are their pocketbooks we are still subscribed to Disney Plus?
Mm-hmm.
There's no ads being ran. We're not buying the shows. So we're still paying for it regardless. I think we're in this new streaming landscape we're in. I think there's a lot more wiggle room because even if you don't like the show and you complain about it, they don't give a shit.
Yeah.
It's like you're still subscribed.
Yeah.
You're still here, bitch. Go away. Whatever you. I don't care what you think.
With Disney Plus though, in particular, so you have issues where people did the free month sign up and then they unsubscribe. You have parents who aren't happy with the children's content that's being put out there, so they're unsubscribing. I think you're seeing a larger churn rate on Disney Plus than you are on most things, and a lot of their discount stuff, when it hits maturity, people are unsubscribing from it then. And I think it's only the hardcore like us who just stick around because it's our job to literally watch this stuff and talk about it. Are paying the full price for these streaming services.
You know what I did notice though? I noticed that comedies are coming back. So I think that we're you know that I don't know, you guys ever hear this theory every 10 years people stop making comedies for 5 or 6 years. And it's almost like every generation it's like skipping a generation. The American Pies and the raunchy, fun movies.
Comedy has been under attack, just like everything else has been under attack. All these comedians who are who their whole act was making fun of the people that we talk about on the show every week.
Right, so, but look at the cycle though. Right, we got a bunch of raunchy comedies in the '80s, hardly any in the '90s, a bunch in the early 2000s, hardly any in the teens, and now we're starting to see raunchy comedies come up again. There's a cycle that there's a clear cycle here. I think it has something to do with as generations age into adults and appreciate that kind of humor again and sort of get past their bullshit, then they can enjoy it. And that's why we're going to hopefully we get another decade of raunchy comedies. Cause that's my guilty pleasure is a good raunchy comedy. I don't know if you guys ever see Eurotrip. One of the funniest movies I've ever seen in my life. Scotty doesn't know. I think I sung that in my head for 2 weeks after seeing that movie.
There's a movie coming out. There's a movie. There's a movie coming out that they're just starting to market, and I think it's called The Machine with Burt Kreischer.
Oh,
and yes. And this thing looks phenomenal, and it's about him, and it has to. I don't know if you guys are familiar with Burt at all, but he has this story that he plays that he has in all of his shows where it's about how when he was in college, he went to Russia and inadvertently joined the Russian mob by not knowing how to speak English. It is great. If you guys haven't seen it, go just find it somewhere. I'll put it in our Discord or something somewhere. But they turned this into a movie, and it's about. I can't really explain what it's about, but it's Burt Kreischer. If you've never seen his stuff, it's really funny. And Mark Hamill actually plays his dad in this movie, which kind of blew my mind because I'm not a huge Mark Hamill fan, but I will give the movie a shot because of Burt. But it looks good, and it looks raunchy, and it looks dirty, and it looks funny as hell. And I've heard him on his other podcasts say about how his only goal with this movie was to bring the raunchy comedy back.
Bring the comedy.
That was his goal with making this movie, and I'm going to give it a shot just based on that. So,
real quick, we got a super chat from the Astro Nerd Boy for $5. I killed my Disney Plus subscription. I'm loath to ever return, even for something good.
Yeah.
Don't blame me. Don't blame me on that. You got to understand, or at least Hollywood needs to understand all the bad will they're building up by not only making bad material, but also attacking fans who don't like the bad material that they're making. They're not endearing anyone. Brian, I like to point out Terry Metalis, where every time someone goes on Twitter and gives him a hard time for what they're seeing for Star Trek Picard season 3, he just says like, hey man, just I respect your opinion, but just hang in there. Like I do get to this, like he's an example of how you treat kind of I don't toxic fans or like critical fans or something like that.
Critical fans,
as opposed to like attacking them and telling them it's your fault that you don't like this, you don't get it. Like he's not pulling a Ryan Johnson here where he's like saying like, you're not smart enough to appreciate my genius.
You're not educated enough to understand my thought process, you pleb.
Terry will even like make snarky comments to fellow Star Trek people. There was one this week where Armin Shimmerman, the guy who plays Quark on DS9, right? He made a tweet about, I'm not sure how comfortable I am with seeing like fires on a ship out in space, referring to when Rose slammed the shuttle pod into the Intrepid, and Terry replied to it with a picture of DS9 with like flames and fire going all out of it. It's like, I seem to remember this show. And it was funny.
Terry is like a super nerd. He has like this archival knowledge of Star Treks.
Yeah.
So he has screenshots on the ready, bro.
Yeah, it's pretty funny.
So guys, I know we spent a lot of time on Lucasfilm and Star Wars, but there's one more story I wanted to talk about, which is Damon Lindelof's Star Wars. So the news came out this week that basically Bob Iger is coming in. He's shutting down a lot of these Star Wars projects. Patty Jenkins' Rogue Squadron movie is no longer going forward. Kevin Feige's movie is no longer going forward. In fact, Ryan Johnson's trilogy is still up in the air. Right now, the only things that are kind of still in development are Taika Waititi's Star Wars movie that he's going to be writing, directing, and starring in, apparently, and Damon Lindelof's Star Wars. And he was at South by Southwest this past week, and Slash Film kind of caught up with him. And this is what he had to say. He says, I will just say that for reasons that I can't get into on this Sunday morning, on this day, the degree of difficulty is extremely, extremely, extremely high. If it can't be great, it shouldn't exist. This is about his Star Wars movie. That's all I'll say, because I have the same association with it as you do, which is it's the first movie I saw sitting in my dad's lap, 4 years old, May of 1977. I think it's possible that sometimes when you hold something in such high reverence and esteem, you start to get in the kitchen and you just go, maybe I shouldn't be cooking. Maybe I should just be eating, and we'll just leave it at this point. And basically his movie is going to be taking place after the sequel trilogy. It says here that Charmin Abaid-Chinois, who I guess directed Ms. Marvel, is apparently tapped to direct this Star Wars film being developed by Lindelof. Justine Britt Gibson, who also wrote The Strain and produced The Strain, is reportedly co-writing the screenplay. Aside from that, very little is known, but it is believed to focus on the timeline after the events of the Rise of Skywalker. And let it be known that Damon Lindelof, he was the guy behind Lost and also Prometheus and Cowboys and Aliens and the first two Star Trek films he was a co-writer on with J.J. Abrams. So like this guy has a very terrible track record. He adapted Watchmen for HBO, made it super woke. And I just have no faith that this guy could actually turn in a good Star Wars movie. And the fact that he's saying that maybe I shouldn't do it, I'm like, yes, do not do it. This is another example of Lucasfilm hiring bad robot proteges like J.J. Abrams, people J.J. Abrams kind of trained and mentored, and having them ruin stuff. So I wanted to get your guys' take on this. Do you think that it's smart to continue with Damon Lindelof's idea of Star Wars here? Brian, let's start with you.
All right. So I'm about to be criticized right now. I actually sort of liked Cowboys and Aliens. I'm just saying. It wasn't a bad movie. It was a cool premise. The execution was poor, but it was a cool premise. No, I think he's right. I think that it's surprisingly like self-understanding of oneself. So he's like, yeah, I'm not the guy for this. Props, dude. He has a very bad track record. I think he's a pushover. I think he lets his writers walk all over him. Mm-hmm. I've been learning a little bit about how Hollywood works. And when you're a showrunner, you got to have some scruples, dude. You got to have some balls. You got to be able to be like, no, we're not doing that. No, I don't want to do it that way. You have to run your room. And a lot of showrunners nowadays, they don't want to be on the wrong side of the cancel culture. So they sort of let the room run the show. And I think the guy just, I think if he's going to continue his career and he wants to be successful, he's probably got to sack up. And I think this is extraordinarily, I think this is a great idea. Yeah, he definitely shouldn't be involved.
Joe, what do you think? So keep in mind, Lindelof's not saying he shouldn't be involved. He's just hesitant at being involved because he wants to get it right. Joe, what's your take on this?
I mean, well, if he actually does feel that, like, hey, maybe I shouldn't be involved, like, that's kind of noble. I would say it's more humble than what you see normally out of these people, because they all think like, oh yeah, I can do it. Like I got a lot of cool ideas for this. So the mere fact that he's like, yeah, maybe I shouldn't do it unless it can be really good. That's pretty cool. But I would say no, bro, you shouldn't do it.
Yeah.
So Lamar, one of the things that Lindelof faced is he got a lot of criticism for adapting The Watchmen. But if you watch the HBO Watchmen series, it's like Watchmen in name only, pretty much. Like it really has nothing to do with the actual comic book. In fact, Zack Snyder's adaptation of Watchmen was actually more faithful to the comic than Lindelof's was. But it was beloved by critics.
Sorry, did Matt? Did you just compliment?
I did.
Zack
Yes.
Snyder? Wow.
For basically copying the comic book, which
someone
Snyder
note the time and the date. This is an important milestone.
Basically, Lindelof was heavily criticized for his, taking on Watchmen. And then when it came out, critics showered him with praise. And he's like, I was right all along. And it sounds like this is, par for the course for him, where he's like, oh, like I'm getting criticized. And so like, I'm going to tread very carefully. And then when his Star Wars movie comes out, it's going to suck, but all the critics are going to love it because they're shills. And he's like, I was right all along. So do you think that he's actually being humble, or is this just like CYA covering his ass for future blowback?
So I will say this: I'm a huge fan of Lost seasons 1 through 4,
Same.
And
Yeah.
I think like that's his kind of area where it's kind of like intricate characters like bouncing off of each other with a little bit of mythical stuff in it.
Mystery boxes, bro.
A little mystery stuff. And I saw an interview where he basically said, yeah, I really didn't want to do like a season 6, but the studio told me I had to. So going off of what you just said, Brian, I was like, yeah, that's when things kind of fell apart. Like season 5 and 6, he just was like, all right, well, they said not to. And I think
they said not to. They need this. I'll do that. Yeah, it's less about he doesn't have the scruples.
I think he probably has like the technical thing, but then it's like, well, do I want to get paid this week? It's that problem. And so I would say for him, just do something else, like other than like a major IP, because what's going to happen is he's going to be like, hey, I have maybe these interesting ideas, and they're like, well, how are we going to sell toys?
Right.
That's what's going to happen. That's basic, and he's not the person for it. Like,
yeah, what's your plan for merchandising? The showrunner shouldn't be worried about the merchandising, guys.
If you're an established director, producer, whatever, like that, you have a string of hits and you're well known, like this guy is, and everything in Hollywood and in the world. If Kathleen Kennedy or Bob Iger came up to you and said, hey man, do you want to make a Star Wars movie? And then if you really think about it, about all the nonsense and all the craziness that's gone on in the last decade or whatever, would you want to make a Star Wars movie?
You're not going to make one.
You know what? I would probably say no. Absolutely not. Do I not want to make a Star Wars movie? What Lucasfilm needs to do is they just need to have their own in-house people direct and make these things. Let Jon Favreau make one. Let Taika Waititi is the same thing. It's like Taika Waititi doesn't need Star Wars. He doesn't need Star Wars. I don't even know why they would attach his name to a Star Wars movie. His style of movie does not translate well to the Star Wars world.
Yeah, that's like when they asked Dan Harmon to make Doctor Strange, you're like, why would you do that? It just doesn't make any sense for me to have Lucasfilm going out and trying to get these
these ringers to come in and make Star Wars movies, because they don't need to do that. You don't need to have Steven Spielberg's name attached to a Star Wars movie.
No, you don't.
To sell tickets. It just has to be Star Wars, and it should be good. You know, it's just it feels like gimmick casting, gimmick direct announcements to me, and that's how I feel about all of these stupid 30 things that they've announced over the last 5 years that none of them are going to ever come true, because it's just gimmicks. And I like I said, if I was a big name in Hollywood, there's no way I'd want to make a Star Wars thing, anything. So that's it.
That's a really good point.
All right, guys. Well, we are at the end of our show. I want to thank everyone for coming on and giving us their thoughts and opinions on these terrible, terrible things that are happening in our entertainment. Lamar, give us any final thoughts you may have, and where can people find out more about you?
Yeah, Damon Lindelof, just do your own thing. That's all I have. Star Wars, also 10 to 15 years. Let's forget about it. But half of the Perfect Turd podcast, perfectturd.com. Come check us out. And yeah, that's it for me.
All right, Joe, any final thoughts, and where can people find more about you?
Final thoughts would be stop making all these things that I love and making them worse. And yeah, perfectturd.com. You can watch all our videos and subscribe and all that from there. Also, if anyone out there, if you've made a movie, B-movie, a horrible movie, send it to us. Maybe we can review it. Or if anything, we're always looking to promote people. Like if you're an independent filmmaker, we want you to succeed. So we'll do whatever we can to promote your stuff. And thanks you guys for having us on the Salty Nerd today.
Yeah, Lamar and Joe do a fantastic job of watching movies that you will never want to see in your life, and then making them easily accessible to the masses. So like they watch it so you don't have to. Really enjoy their YouTube channel a lot. So definitely go and search for them on YouTube. And in fact, Joe, Lamar, we had we did like a little call with Lynn Kabazinski not too long ago.
Oh, cool. We love Lynn.
Yeah, which was a lot of fun. So yeah, definitely check those guys out. I love their channel, and they could use your support. Brian from the Popcast, any final thoughts, and where can people find out more about you?
No final thoughts, I suppose. I am putting out, like, literally as we speak, I'm making our episode 5 breakdown and Terry Metalis interview live right now on the Popcast Prime channel.
Nice.
And he had some really cool stuff to say about Roe. If you guys don't know, every one of our weekly breakdown videos also has Terry at the end of the video, and it was very difficult to make that happen. So please watch it. Please do. We are nobodies, and it took us a lot of effort to convince him to let us film him. And so you guys go check it out. And I'm actually making it live as we speak.
Yeah, and you guys also just released your interview with Captain Shaw himself, Todd Stashwick, on your channel.
Awesome.
Yeah, it was a very good interview. You shot it at his house in his man cave with all of his memorabilia and stuff, and it just shows like how much of a good nerd he is.
He's such a good nerd. It's packed, bro, floor to ceiling with nerd stuff. Ghostbusters, Star Wars, Star Trek. It's nuts.
Yeah, and you get to see just how genuine of a good guy he is, and I really hope that he gets his own Star Trek show really soon. Matt Vader 74.
Yes.
Final thoughts, and what are we up to on the Salty Nerd channel?
Oh, final thoughts. I don't really have any final thoughts other than just saying thank you to Lamar and Joe and Brian for hanging out with us today. Love it when you guys come on. Thank you to the chat for making it lively and interesting as you do every week, and thank you so much for the super chats. We really do appreciate those, and it just makes it worth doing this. Salty Nerd Podcast. Yesterday, we released our for the first time in a while, we released a review of a brand new movie that's actually out in theaters. We all went and watched 65 last week, and we talked about it in the studio, and that got released yesterday. And it's a fun movie, I guess, if you're into weird monsters. Fun.
Kylo
Ren and not dinosaurs. It's great. Next week, I believe we're releasing the Netflix South Korean movie Young-E. Is that correct? Because
I think so.
Yeah, Young-E, another sci-fi banger from South Korea, where we watched that, and that'll be coming out next Friday. Tuesday afternoons, we do a live stream from the studio after we record our weekly show, which you can also find on Spaces at about 10 o'clock on Tuesdays. We record everything on Spaces. It comes out raw, unfiltered, straight from us. Twitter Spaces, and then we turn that off, and about a half hour later we turn on YouTube live streaming like we're doing here right now, and we just have a good time riffing and chatting with our friends. So that's what that's all about, and that's what we got going on. So
we also do live commentary recordings for Star Trek the original series, which we make available to our Patreon members.
Yep.
So if you go to saltynerdclub.com, you actually get access to full commentary episodes where we sit down in our new studio, we watch the episode, we talk about it as we're watching it. It's a lot of fun. The episodes are very funny because it's got that original series cheese to it, but at the same time, we love it. And we're having a good time watching those. And we're getting ready to start covering HBO Max's Warrior series in preparation for season 3 coming out, because we love all those people making that show. They also made C, which was one of our all-time favorite Apple TV shows. Unfortunately, it ended. So now they're moving back to the Warrior show, and we're going to be covering that stuff. But I also want to give a shout out to all the people who gave us super chats this episode. Joker Voice, thank you so much. The Astro Nerd Boy taking the top spot. Thank you, Astro Nerd Boy. Ron Cook, Gavin Blackburn, and John Kakaza. You guys are awesome. We really appreciate the support, and we appreciate the generosity and the continued showing up in chat and interacting with us. We love it. We do this for you guys. If it wasn't for you guys, we wouldn't really be showing up every Saturday morning to do this, because it's a lot of work. At least for me, it is. So I wanted to thank you all. Be sure to tune in next Saturday, same salty time, same salty channel, where we will have new panelists and new topics to discuss. And until then, stay salty, my friends. And we're going to leave you with a word from our sponsor. Take care, and we'll see you soon.
We just threw away our old wallets. Want to know why? Because we just discovered the most efficient smart wallet in the world. Exter has revolutionized the wallet, and we will never go back to bifold. We are so impressed. Exter wallets are super slim and sleek. They are half the size of a conventional bifold wallet. Compact and modular, they hold 12 cards or more plus cash. And that means no more stuffing that bulky, worn-out bifold wallet into your back pocket. Forget sitting on that uncomfortable lump and slide Exter into your front pocket instead. This high-quality wallet combines Italian leather, space-grade aluminum, and carbon fiber. Plus, it includes built-in RFID blocking to protect you from wireless theft. And you know how hard it can be to replace all of your cards if your wallet is stolen. Exter includes a tracking card to help you keep an eye on your belongings with a map, and you can even ring it for location assistance. This is the last wallet you'll ever buy. To get an Exter wallet like ours, visit shop.exter.com/thepopcast. Get 25% off your order when you use code THEPOPCAST at checkout. Join the wallet revolution and upgrade your quality of life with Exter today.